The low murmur of conversations blended seamlessly with the gentle clinking of glassware in a refined, upscale restaurant in Chicago's bustling downtown. The ambience exuded sophistication. Soft lighting illuminated polished mahogany tables adorned with delicate floral centerpieces. To most, it was the perfect setting for confidence and charm to flourish. For Evelyn Carter, however, it was a battlefield for her nerves. Dressed in a simple but well-maintained navy dress she had borrowed from her sister, Evelyn hesitated at the doorway. Her reflection in the glass pane reminded her of her reality. Worn heels she had mended herself, a modest clutch in hand, and a flutter of anxiety tightening her chest. Tonight wasn't about appearances, though. It was about keeping a promise to her childhood friend, Alice, who had set her up on this blind date, insisting Evelyn needed to start living again. Clutching her phone for courage, Evelyn finally stepped inside. The aromas of rich sauces and fresh herbs teased her senses as she scanned the room. Table 11, she murmured under her breath, a mantra to steady her shaky resolve. Her eyes darted between tables until they landed on a man seated near the back. He was engrossed in his phone, his tailored suit crisp, his dark hair meticulously styled. That must be him, Evelyn thought, willing herself forward. As she approached, her heart raced, a mix of fear and anticipation. Summoning a bright, practiced smile, she stopped by the table and spoke. "Hi, you must be Ryan," she said, her voice warm but tinged with uncertainty. "I'm Evelyn. It's nice to meet you." The man looked up, his piercing hazel eyes locking onto hers. A flicker of surprise crossed his face before he composed himself. Hi," he replied, hesitating as if caught off guard. Evelyn misread the pause as bashfulness and quickly slipped into the seat across from him. "So," she began, her hands clasped tightly on her lap to hide their trembling. "Blind dates are interesting, aren't they? Alice said you might be quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." The man's lips curved into a faint smile. His name wasn't Ryan, but he didn't correct her. Something about her earnestness, her lack of pretense, held him back. Evelyn's authenticity was refreshing, even disarming for a man used to calculated conversations and superficial interactions. "Right?" he said with a chuckle, his voice low and warm. "Blind dates are something else." Unbeknownst to Evelyn, she had just mistaken one of the most influential CEOs in the tech industry, Logan Pierce, for her date. But Logan didn't care. He wanted to know more about the woman sitting across from him, the woman who saw him as just another stranger in the room. Evelyn's initial nervousness began to ease as she dove into the conversation. She shared snippets of her life, how she worked as a graphic designer at a small firm, her love for vintage art, and the struggle to balance her creative ambitions with financial responsibilities. Her words came quickly, filling the gaps where she assumed Ryan's shyness might have left silence. Meanwhile, Logan leaned back in his chair, an amused yet intrigued smile on his lips. "What about you?" she asked after finishing a story about a misprinted wedding invitation she had designed. "Alice told me you're into finance? Stocks and stuff?" Logan hesitated, caught off guard by the lie that wasn't his to unravel. "Something like that," he replied vaguely, maintaining the charade a little longer. "What about you? Ever think of starting your design studio?" Evelyn blinked, momentarily stunned. "Oh, all the time," she admitted, her voice softening. "But dreams like that feel so out of reach. Between rent and student loans, it's hard to think beyond the next paycheck." Logan studied her as she spoke, noticing the flicker of hope in her eyes despite her practical words. This wasn't the polished ambition he was used to seeing in his social circles, where people networked more than they conversed. Evelyn's dreams were honest, grounded in real struggles, and yet carried an unshakable resilience. "Don't sell yourself short," Logan said, surprising himself with the sincerity in his tone. "You're talented. Sometimes all it takes is the right opportunity." Evelyn smiled, the compliment landing more deeply than Logan might have realized. She was about to ask him more about his career when her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, her heart skipping a beat as she read the text. "Hi, Evelyn. I'm at table 11. Looking forward to meeting you. Ryan." Her smile froze. Slowly, Her gaze lifted to Logan, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "You're not Ryan, are you?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Logan's faint smile faded into an expression of guilt. "No, I'm not," he admitted softly. "I was going to say something, but you seemed so comfortable. I didn't want to ruin it." Evelyn's stomach churned as she stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Oh my God," she muttered, clutching her phone. "I am so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. This is so embarrassing." "Wait," Logan said, standing as well. "Evelyn, it's okay. But she was already grabbing her coat, her face aflame as she made a beeline for the door. Logan watched her leave, a strange mix of regret and longing settling in his chest. He hadn't intended to deceive her, yet the connection they had shared, however brief, felt more genuine than any he'd experienced in years. He didn't want it to end here for reasons he couldn't fully explain. That night, Evelyn returned to her small apartment, the city lights twinkling mockingly outside her window. She threw herself onto the couch, groaning into a pillow. Her roommate, Alice, peeked over the edge of her laptop with a raised brow. "That bad, huh?" Alice asked, setting her laptop aside. Evelyn sat up, her cheeks still flushed from the memory. "Worse. I sat at the wrong table and had a full conversation with some random guy thinking he was Ryan." Alice stifled a laugh. "Well, was he at least nice?" Evelyn hesitated, her mind replaying the conversation. "He was nice. Funny, too. But I bolted the second I realized my mistake." Alice leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "Sounds like a meet-cute in one of those rom-coms you pretend not to watch." "Stop," Evelyn groaned, burying her face in her hands. It was humiliating. Across town, Logan sat in the penthouse suite of a luxury hotel, his gaze fixed on the glittering Chicago skyline. The hum of distant traffic and the muted glow of city lights, usually a source of comfort, now felt cold and uninviting. Evelyn consumed his thoughts, the woman who had mistaken him for someone ordinary and, in doing so, had treated him with unfiltered sincerity. She didn't care about his wealth or status because she hadn't known about them. For the first time in years, Logan had felt indeed seen. Her words, laughter, hand, and dream had all left an impression on him that he could shake. Logan sat at his desk the following day, absently scrolling through emails while his assistant, Claire, reviewed his schedule. "You're distracted," she noted, glancing up from her clipboard. "Something happened?" Logan hesitated, debating whether to explain. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I met someone. By accident." Claire raised an eyebrow. "By accident?" "She thought I was someone else," Logan admitted. "We talked, and I don't know. It felt different. Real." Claire set her clipboard down, her curiosity evident. "And now?" "And now," Logan said, his voice firming with determination, "I want to see her again." Later that evening, Evelyn's phone buzzed as she finished her shift at a local art supply store. Pulling it from her pocket, she frowned at the unfamiliar number. "Hi, Evelyn, this is Logan. I was the guy at the restaurant. It was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe?" Her heart skipped a beat as she reread the message. Logan, the man she had mistaken for Ryan. He wasn't angry or mocking her for her mistake. He wanted to meet again. She showed the message to Alice that evening, her brow furrowed. "What do I do?" Evelyn asked. Alice grinned. "You say yes. What's the worst that could happen?" After a moment of hesitation, Evelyn replied, "Okay, coffee sounds nice." The next day, Logan chose a quiet coffee shop tucked away from the usual crowds. When Evelyn arrived, she found him seated near the window, dressed casually in a sweater and jeans that softened his otherwise commanding presence. "Hi," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Hi," Logan replied, his smile warm and genuine. "Thanks for agreeing to this." Evelyn shrugged, trying to play off her nerves. "It's not every day someone you accidentally meet at a restaurant texts you." "I was curious." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, laughter punctuating the hum of the cafe. Logan asked her about her artwork, favorite books, and family. Evelyn shared rarely discussed details, her financial struggles, her mother's health issues, and her dream of opening a gallery. "You're incredibly resilient," Logan said, his admiration evident. Evelyn laughed softly. "Resilient or stubborn? Take your pick." As they left the cafe, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a strange mix of comfort and curiosity. Logan wasn't what she had expected, whoever she had expected him to be. Yet, something about him drew her in, something she couldn't quite place. She didn't know that Logan, too, felt the same pull, his heart already grappling with the challenge of revealing his true identity. Evelyn didn't know what to expect from Logan after their second meeting, but as days turned into weeks, their conversations continued, each one more personal than the last. They texted late into the night, swapping stories and jokes, and Logan found himself smiling at his phone more than he had in years. For Evelyn, Logan felt like a rare beacon of calm amidst her chaotic life. A man who listened, encouraged, and seemed genuinely intrigued by her. One evening, Logan surprised Evelyn by suggesting they meet at the park she often mentioned as her sanctuary. It was a small but picturesque space, nestled between towering city buildings, with winding paths and benches tucked under vibrant maple trees. Evelyn arrived with her sketchbook, a habit she always kept when visiting the park. Logan was already there, dressed casually, but still exuding an understated elegance that seemed effortless. He stood near a fountain, hands in his pockets, as the setting sun painted the scene in warm hues. Evelyn felt her nerves flutter again, but Logan's easy smile quickly put her at ease. "Beautiful spot," he said as she approached. "I can see why you love it here." "It's where I come to clear my head," Evelyn admitted. She motioned to a nearby bench. "Want to sit?" As they settled on the bench, Evelyn flipped open her sketchbook, revealing intricate drawings of cityscapes, people, and fleeting moments she'd captured over time. Logan leaned in to study them, his admiration growing with each page. "These are incredible," he said. "You have such a way of capturing emotion. Have you ever thought about showcasing them somewhere?" Evelyn laughed softly, her cheeks flushing. "You sound like my sister. She's always telling me I should try submitting them to competitions or local galleries." "She's right," Logan said earnestly. "You should." Evelyn hesitated, brushing her fingers over the edge of the page. "I don't know. It's scary, putting yourself out there like that." Logan's voice softened. "The scariest risks are often the ones most worth taking. And I think you'd surprise yourself." For a moment, Evelyn looked at him, seeing not just his confidence, but also a kind of sincerity that felt rare. "You believe that?" "I do," Logan replied without hesitation. As they walked through the park later, Evelyn couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to be around him. They stopped at a small pond where a child was feeding ducks, and Evelyn impulsively pulled out her sketchbook to capture the scene. Logan watched her with quiet fascination, struck by how her focus sharpened and her hand moved precisely and efficiently. "You're amazing," he said softly, almost to himself. Evelyn glanced up, startled. "I'm just drawing." "No," Logan said, shaking his head. "It's more than that." As their bond grew, Logan found himself torn. Every moment he spent with Evelyn felt genuine and grounding. Yet the truth about who he was and his life loomed like a shadow over their budding connection. He had promised himself he'd tell her soon, but the words seemed to catch in his throat each time the opportunity arose. One Saturday morning, Logan offered to help Evelyn with her groceries. They wandered through the aisles of her local market, chatting about everything from childhood memories to their favorite guilty pleasure foods. At checkout, Evelyn tried to insist on carrying her bags, but Logan took most of them without complaint. "You're going to regret this," she teased as they climbed the stairs to her apartment. "These bags weigh a ton." Logan smirked. "I'll manage." As they stepped into her small apartment, Logan was struck by the cozy warmth of the space. Art supplies were scattered across the living room, sketches and paintings adorned the walls, and the faint smell of lavender lingered in the air. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, high-end spaces he was used to, and he found it oddly comforting. "Sorry for the mess," Evelyn said, setting down her bags. "It's lived in, I guess." "It's perfect," Logan said, his tone genuine. As they unpacked the groceries, Evelyn opened up about her mother's health struggles. how the mounting medical bills had forced her to take on extra freelance work, and how she sometimes felt like she was treading water. "It's tough," she admitted, her voice soft, "but my mom's always been my biggest supporter. I owe it to her to keep going." Logan nodded, his respect for her deepening with each word. Evelyn's life differed from his own, yet her determination and selflessness made her seem infinitely stronger. Later that evening, Logan sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the glittering Chicago skyline. The weight of his deception pressed down on him. He knew he couldn't keep up the facade much longer. Evelyn deserved to see the truth, but the thought of losing her, of shattering the fragile connection they had built, terrified him. The decision was made for him sooner than he expected. Evelyn volunteered at a high-profile charity gala the following week, helping coordinate silent auction items to raise funds for local youth programs. She was busy arranging items on a table when excitement swept through the crowd. "Who's that?" one of the volunteers asked, gesturing toward the entrance. Evelyn turned, her heart skipping a beat. Logan stood at the entrance, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that amplified his already commanding presence. He greeted the event organizer with a microphone and introduced him to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," the organizer said, her voice enthusiastic, "we are honored to welcome tonight's guest of honor, Mr. Logan Pierce, whose generosity has made this event possible." The room erupted in applause, but Evelyn barely heard it. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. Logan wasn't just an ordinary guy. He was one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the city. Her heart raced as she watched him mingle with the attendees, his polished demeanor a far cry from the man she had come to know. The weight of his deception crushed her, and a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal swirled in her chest. When the event slowed, Evelyn approached him, her expression cold and guarded. "Logan," she said sharply. He turned, his usual composure faltering when he saw her. "Evelyn," he began, stepping closer. "Don't," she interrupted, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "We need to talk." Logan nodded, leading her to a quiet hallway outside the ballroom. Evelyn crossed her arms, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "So, you're Logan Pierce, the billionaire. Care to explain why you pretended to be someone else?" Logan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "It wasn't intentional, Evelyn. You thought I was someone else, and I didn't correct you. I liked how easy it was to talk to you, how real it felt. For once, I wasn't Logan Pierce, the CEO. I was just me." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "So you lied. You let me believe you were someone you're not. Everything I said, everything we shared. It was real," Logan insisted, his voice tinged with desperation. "I just didn't know how to tell you the truth without losing you." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "You already have," she said softly, turning and walking away. Logan watched her go, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. He hadn't just lied. He had broken the trust of the person who had seen him for who he was, not what he owned. And now, he wasn't sure if he'd ever get the chance to make it right. The days following their confrontation were heavy for Logan and Evelyn, though they processed their emotions differently. In her small apartment, Evelyn replayed every moment she had shared with Logan, her feelings swinging between anger and heartbreak. How could he have lied to her so quickly? The man she had come to admire, the one who carried her groceries, encouraged her art, and listened to her stories, felt like an illusion. Yet, as much as she tried to stay angry, the sincerity in his eyes during their final conversation haunted her. Alice, her ever-curious roommate, couldn't let Evelyn wallow in silence. "You can't avoid him forever," Alice said one evening, her arms crossed as she leaned against the kitchen counter. "I'm not avoiding him," Evelyn said, stabbing her fork into a half-eaten salad. Alice raised a brow. "You're ignoring his texts and pretending you're fine when clearly you're not." Evelyn sighed, dropping her fork. "It's not that simple, Alice. He lied to me. About everything." "Did he, though?" Alice pressed. "Or did he just delay the truth? You said it yourself. He didn't act like some entitled billionaire. Maybe that's because he isn't one. Not entirely, anyway." Evelyn shook her head, unwilling to entertain the possibility. "It doesn't matter. Trust is everything, and he broke that. Across the city, Logan was navigating his turmoil. His days were a blur of meetings he barely focused on, his assistant Claire frequently pulling him back on track. At night, he sat alone in his penthouse, the expansive skyline a hollow reminder of the world he had built. A world that now felt unbearably empty without Evelyn. "You've been like this all week," Claire said bluntly one morning, setting a steaming cup of coffee on his desk. "Are you going to tell me what's happening, or should I guess?" Logan rubbed his temples, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. "It's Evelyn," he admitted. "She found out who I am, and I handled it poorly." Claire folded her arms. "Let me guess. You let her find out on her own instead of telling her yourself?" Logan shot her a look, and she sighed. "Well, you've messed up, big time. But you must prove it to her if she's as special as you say. Actions, Logan. Words won't cut it." Her advice sparked an idea, one that quickly consumed Logan's thoughts. He knew he couldn't undo the past, but he could show Evelyn how much she meant to him, how much he believed in her and the dreams she had shared with him. Logan threw himself into a plan, pouring his time and resources into perfecting it. He reached out to the owner of the small art gallery Evelyn had often spoken about, convincing them to let him purchase the space. But he didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, he worked tirelessly with a team to curate an exhibit entirely dedicated to Evelyn's artwork. Unbeknownst to her, Logan had been quietly collecting her sketches, pieces she had left behind or shared with him. Each was framed with care, and the gallery was transformed into a space celebrating her talent and vision. Meanwhile, Evelyn struggled to move forward. She avoided Logan's texts and calls, focusing on her job and caring for her mother. But now and then, she'd find herself glancing at her phone, her resolve weakening. She missed him, missed the version of him she thought she knew. And yet, the pain of his deception kept her from reaching out. It wasn't until Alice burst into the apartment one evening, a flyer clutched in her hand, that everything changed. "You're not going to believe this," Alice said, practically shoving the paper in Evelyn's face. Evelyn frowned, taking the flyer and reading the bold headline, "Special Exhibit, The Art of Evelyn Carter." Her heart stopped. What is this?" "It's you," Alice said, grinning. "Your art. In a gallery. And I think I know who's behind it." The next evening, Evelyn stood outside the gallery, her heart racing. The windows glowed warmly, inviting her in. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. Her breath caught as she took in the space. Sketches she had forgotten about, quick doodles and intricate pieces alike, adorned the walls. The gallery was quiet, with a soft hum of music playing in the background. In the center of the room sat a single pedestal with a handwritten note. Her hands trembled, and Evelyn picked it up. "Your art deserves the world, just like you deserve honesty and love. Let me try again." "Logan." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked around. Every piece told a story about her struggles and her shared dreams with him. Before she could fully process it, Logan stepped out from behind a partition, his expression cautious but hopeful. "Evelyn," he said softly, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I know I hurt you, and I know an apology isn't enough, but I couldn't let you go without showing you how much I believe in you, how much you mean to me." Evelyn stared at him, her emotions swirling. "You did all this?" "For you," Logan admitted. "Because you deserve to be seen, to be celebrated. And because I needed you to know that every moment we shared was real." Her tears spilled over, but she wiped them away quickly. "Logan, I don't know if I can just forget what happened." "I'm not asking you to," he said, stepping closer. "I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust again, to show you that I see you. Not just your talent, but your heart. And I'll spend as long as it takes proving that to you." Evelyn hesitated, her walls still partially intact. But as she looked around the gallery at the pieces of herself that Logan had gathered and celebrated, she couldn't deny the sincerity in his actions. He had gone beyond words, beyond grand gestures, to show her how much he cared. "Maybe," she said finally, her voice soft but steady, "maybe some things are worth a second chance." Logan's eyes lit up, though he remained cautious. "I'll take maybe," he said with a small smile. "And I promise, no more secrets." Evelyn nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in her heart. Whatever came next, she knew it would take time, but she was willing to try. In the following weeks, Evelyn and Logan began to rebuild their connection, one cautious step at a time. Their meetings were more deliberate now, filled with long walks through the park, quiet coffee shop conversations, and visits to the gallery, where Evelyn spent hours organizing her first official exhibit. Logan, true to his promise, held nothing back. He answered every question she asked about his rise to wealth, his struggles with loneliness, and why he had felt the need to escape the suffocating world of privilege, even briefly. One afternoon, as they sat on a park bench under the shade of a maple tree, Evelyn asked, "Do you ever wish your life was different? That you weren't, Logan Pierce, billionaire tech mogul?" Logan chuckled softly, the weight of the question evident in his pause. "More often than you'd think," he admitted. "It's not that I'm ungrateful for what I've built, but sometimes I wonder what living a simpler life would be like. Not always feel like people see my bank account before seeing me." Evelyn nodded, her sketchbook resting on her lap. "I can't imagine what that's like. But I guess, in a way, I've always felt the opposite. Like people see what I don't have before they see me." Logan turned to her, his expression serious. "That's not true, Evelyn. When I see you, I see someone talented, resilient, and unapologetically real. That's why He stopped himself, catching the words before they escaped. Evelyn smiled faintly. "Why you what?" He hesitated, then met her gaze. "Why I fell for you." The air between them grew still, the weight of his confession hanging softly between them. Evelyn didn't respond immediately, but her cheeks flushed, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "I think," she said after a moment, her voice barely above a whisper, "I might be falling for you too." For Logan, it was enough. He didn't press her for more, knowing they were still navigating fragile ground. But that moment marked a turning point, a quiet acknowledgement that they were both willing to take a risk despite the pain and uncertainty that had brought them here. As the weeks turned into months, Evelyn's gallery opened to the public, becoming a space for community and creativity. Once scattered in sketchbooks and forgotten corners, her artwork now adorned the walls, each piece carefully curated to tell a story of resilience, hope, and self-expression. The opening night was a whirlwind of activity. Local artists, friends, and even strangers filled the space, admiring the work and mingling over glasses of wine. Evelyn, dressed in a flowing emerald dress Alice had insisted she wear, moved through the crowd with pride and disbelief. "You've outdone yourself," Logan said as he approached her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Evelyn took one, her smile soft but genuine. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You could have," Logan corrected. "I just gave you the nudge. The talent and vision were all yours." Before Evelyn could respond, a young woman approached her, clutching a small sketchbook. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "I just wanted to say your work inspires me. I've been drawing for years, but I've always been too scared to share it with anyone." Evelyn's heart swelled as she took the sketchbook, flipping through its pages. The drawings were raw but filled with potential. She handed it back, her smile warm. "You should share it," she said. "Your art deserves to be seen. And if you ever want to talk or get feedback, come by the gallery. I'd love to help." The young woman beamed, her gratitude evident. As she walked away, Logan leaned in, his voice low. "You've already made a difference. That's the goal," Evelyn replied, her cheeks flushing. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned, Logan guided Evelyn to the gallery's center. The room, now quieter, felt intimate, the soft lighting casting a golden glow over the walls. "I have something to say," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. Evelyn tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "I've spent my whole life building things," Logan continued. "Companies, projects, walls around myself. But meeting you made me realize how little those things matter without someone to share them with. You've shown me what living, dreaming, and believing in something bigger than myself means." Evelyn's breath hitched, her heart pounding as Logan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Evelyn Carter," he said, lowering himself to one knee. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I love you for your strength, kindness, and how you see the world. Will you marry me?" For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes as she looked at the man before her, who had seen her for who she was and had fought to earn her trust. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes, I'll marry you." The room erupted in applause from the few lingering guests, but for Evelyn and Logan, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she knew their journey, though far from perfect, had led them exactly where they were meant to be. The following months were a flurry of preparations, but Evelyn and Logan remained grounded in their shared values. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair held at the gallery, surrounded by their closest friends and family. Evelyn's mother, now healthier thanks to Logan's quiet assistance, beamed with pride as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle. Logan, ever thoughtful, ensured that the gallery's outreach program received continued funding, making it a haven for aspiring artists like Evelyn had once been. Together, they built a life centered on love, creativity, and giving back. As the night of their wedding drew to a close, Evelyn and Logan shared their first dance under the soft glow of the gallery lights. The room was filled with warmth, laughter, and the quiet hum of happiness. "I'm glad I sat at the wrong table that night," Evelyn whispered, her head resting against Logan's shoulder. "So am I," Logan replied, his voice filled with love. "It was the best mistake of my life." Their story, built on second chances and unwavering honesty, was a testament to the power of forgiveness, trust, and love. Together, they had turned an accidental meeting into an extraordinary life. Months after their wedding, Evelyn and Logan settled into a life that was anything but ordinary. While Logan continued to manage his tech empire, he made deliberate efforts to step back from the relentless pace that had once consumed him. For Evelyn, the gallery became her professional sanctuary and a platform to help budding artists find their voice. Together, they found a rhythm, balancing ambition with moments of quiet intimacy that kept them grounded. One sunny afternoon, Evelyn stood in the gallery's workshop space, guiding a group of young artists through a collaborative project. The room buzzed with energy as the students, ranging from teenagers to retirees, worked on a mural that would adorn a local community center. Logan arrived quietly, leaning against the doorway and observing Evelyn in her element. "You're incredible with them," he said as the session ended and the students began packing up. Evelyn smiled, wiping paint from her hands. "They remind me of myself when I was younger. Scared, unsure if my art was worth anything." Logan stepped closer, slipping an arm around her waist. "And now you're showing them it is. You've turned this gallery into something much more than a business. It's a movement." Evelyn leaned into him, her voice soft. "I couldn't have done it without you." Evelyn brought up an idea lingering in her mind as they walked home that evening. "What if we started a program to offer free art classes to kids in underserved neighborhoods? We could partner with schools, maybe even offer scholarships to those who show real promise." Logan looked at her, admiration shining in his eyes. "You never stop dreaming, do you?" She shrugged, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "I have to keep you on your toes." Logan laughed, pulling her closer. "I think it's a brilliant idea. Let's make it happen." True to their word, the couple launched the Evelyn Carter Creative Initiative a few months later. It was a partnership between the gallery and Logan's philanthropic foundation, providing resources, mentorship, and opportunities to young artists. The first event, a citywide art showcase, drew hundreds of participants, with several students receiving scholarships to prestigious art schools. Evelyn watched the event unfold with a mixture of pride and awe. "This is just the beginning," Logan whispered to her as they stood on stage together, addressing the crowd. And she knew he was right. As fulfilling as their life together was, it wasn't without challenges. Logan's high-profile career meant constant scrutiny from the media, and as Evelyn's gallery grew in prominence, she found herself thrust into a public spotlight she hadn't anticipated. While Logan was accustomed to the attention, Evelyn struggled with it. One morning, she sat at their kitchen counter, scrolling through an article that speculated about their marriage. The headline read, "Tech Billionaire's Wife, Genuine Love or Strategic Partnership?" Logan entered the room, and immediately noticed the tension in her posture. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his coffee. Evelyn handed him her phone without a word. He scanned the article, his jaw tightening. "This is garbage. You know that, right?" "I do," Evelyn said quietly. "But it still hurts." Logan pulled her into his arms, his voice firm. "We don't owe anyone an explanation. What we have is real, Evelyn. Let them write whatever they want. It doesn't change us." Evelyn nodded, though the sting of the words lingered. It wasn't until a week later, when she received a letter from a young girl in Ohio, that her perspective began to shift. The letter described how Evelyn's journey had inspired the girl, her rise from humble beginnings to running a gallery and building a life with Logan. "You've shown me that dreams can come true," the letter concluded. "Thank you for being someone I can look up to." Evelyn read the letter aloud to Logan, her voice breaking. "Maybe this is why," she said softly, "why we're in the spotlight. To inspire others." Logan kissed her forehead. "And you've done exactly that." From then on, Evelyn embraced the attention not as a burden, but as an opportunity to amplify her mission. She began speaking at art schools, appearing on panels about creative entrepreneurship, and using her platform to champion causes close to her heart. Despite their busy schedules, Evelyn and Logan made it a priority to carve out time for just the two of them. On their first wedding anniversary, Logan surprised Evelyn with a weekend getaway to a secluded mountain cabin. It was a far cry from the grandeur of their usual surroundings, but that was precisely the point. As they sat by the fireplace, sharing stories and sipping hot cocoa, Evelyn asked, "Do you ever think about how far we've come since that night in the restaurant?" Logan chuckled. "All the time. If someone had told me then that the woman who mistook me for someone else would change my life, I wouldn't have believed them." Evelyn smiled, her hand resting over his. "It was a happy accident. A perfect one," Logan corrected, his eyes softening. "And I wouldn't change a thing." Their love, forged through honesty and resilience, had only grown stronger. Together, they continued to face the world, its challenges, joys, and uncertainties, knowing they had found something rare and extraordinary in each other. A partnership built on trust, respect, and unwavering support. As they danced to the soft hum of music in the background, the flicker of firelight casting warm shadows around them, Evelyn whispered, "You've taught me how to believe in myself." Logan smiled, pulling her closer. "And you've taught me what it means to live truly." Their story, still unfolding, was a testament to the power of second chances, the beauty of shared dreams, and the transformative strength of love. By the time their second anniversary approached, Evelyn and Logan had become a cornerstone of their community. The Evelyn Carter Creative Initiative had grown beyond their wildest dreams, offering free classes, hosting citywide art competitions, and even partnering with other philanthropists to provide grants for underprivileged artists. The gallery was no longer just a business. It had become a cultural hub where creativity flourished and lives were changed. Evelyn arrived at the gallery one crisp autumn morning to find the local press setting up cameras. Logan was already there, standing in front of the newly installed sign above the entrance that now read, "The Carter Pierce Center for Art and Community." "What is this?" Evelyn asked, stepping toward him, her breath visible in the chilly air. Logan turned, his smile warm. "A surprise. You've given so much to this community, Evelyn. I thought it was time we made it official." She blinked back tears, overcome by the gesture. The name wasn't just a tribute to her. It was a recognition of everything they had built together. "You didn't have to do this," she said, trembling. "I wanted to," Logan replied. "This isn't just my life anymore, Evelyn. It's ours. And this center, it's a reflection of what we stand for." The ribbon-cutting ceremony that followed was a celebration of everything they had achieved. Evelyn gave a heartfelt speech, thanking the community for their support and Logan for his unwavering belief in her. As she spoke, she glanced at him in the crowd, her heart swelling with gratitude. He had kept and exceeded his promises in ways she never thought possible. Later that evening, as they walked hand in hand through the quiet streets, Evelyn looked up at Logan. "Do you ever feel like we're just getting started?" Logan chuckled. "All the time. There's so much more we can do." Evelyn squeezed his hand, her gaze full of determination. "Then let's keep going." Years passed, but the impact of Evelyn and Logan's efforts only grew. The Carter Pierce Center expanded to other cities, with satellite locations offering the same opportunities for artists and communities. Evelyn became a sought-after speaker, sharing her journey and inspiring others to pursue their dreams despite obstacles. Logan, too, found a renewed sense of purpose. Though he remained involved in his tech company, he focused more on philanthropy, using his wealth to support causes he and Evelyn cared deeply about. Together, they became a powerful team, not just in their work but in their love, which remained the foundation of everything they did. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their home overlooking the city, Evelyn rested her head on Logan's shoulder. The air was warm, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Do you ever think about what our lives might have been like if I hadn't sat at the wrong table that night?" Evelyn asked, her voice soft. Logan smiled, his arm tightening around her. "I think about it all the time, and every time, I come to the same conclusion." "What's that?" "That it was the best mistake I ever made." Evelyn laughed, her gaze turning back to the sky. "It's funny how life works, isn't it? How one small moment can change everything." Logan kissed the top of her head. "It's not just funny, it's extraordinary. And I wouldn't trade it for anything." As the years went on, Evelyn and Logan's story symbolized hope for many. It showed that love could overcome mistakes, that second chances were worth taking, and that when two people believed in each other, they could create something far more significant than themselves. Their legacy wasn't just in the programs they built or the lives they touched. It was in the love they shared, the risks they took, and the unshakable bond they had forged. As they grew older, Evelyn and Logan continued to dream, give, and cherish the life they had built together. And as they danced on their balcony one quiet evening, the music drifting softly through the night, they knew their love, born from an unexpected mistake, had become their greatest masterpiece.